My name is Cecile Mata. I'm 30, and for a living, I build things you can't hold but that millions of people use every day. I'm a senior software engineer, remote since 2020, working out of a modest 3-bedroom colonial in suburban Ohio that still smells like fresh paint and coffee on Monday mornings. The front room is my office. The spare room is half music studio, half plant rehab. The third bedroom is for no one in particular and wholly mine. It took me years and more than a few midnight deployments to buy that house. It's not big, it's just mine. 3 Sundays ago, I drove to my parents' place for dinner with hands that didn't want to touch the steering wheel. Mom cooks like she's in competition with a holiday. Dad narrates like he's announcing a game. Lately, though, a hum has been under everything they say, like a fluorescent light about to blow. Mom, Barbara, opened with her softest voice, the one that makes criticisms sound like moisturizers. "How's your computer schedule, sweetheart?" She ladled mashed potatoes like she was serving a summons. "Busy," I said, taking a breath. "We're in a launch cycle, a lot of stakeholder calls. It's good." Dad, Charles, smiled as if I'd just confessed to playing phone games. "But you don't actually have to go anywhere, right? You work from pajamas." "I don't work in pajamas," I said. "I run meetings across 4 time zones. I lead design. It's a blessing," Mom cut in. "So flexible, such a luxury." The word luxury landed with the weight of a bill. My older sister, Julia May, was cutting chicken nugget halves for her 3 kids, nodding along as if watching a show she'd seen before. Her husband, Patrick, squeezed ketchup in the shape of a heart. I like Patrick. He's a good dad. But I watched him dart his eyes through the archway toward the formal living room where my mother had recently started keeping color swatches air drying on painter's tape, like planning for something no one had said out loud. Halfway through dinner, Mom placed her fork down with performed delicacy. "We've been thinking." The hum got louder. Dad cleared his throat and, God help me, pulled out a clipboard. It had numbered bullet points. Bullet points. "Resource allocation," he announced, as if reading from a quarterly report. "Family equity, needs-based housing." Patrick straightened. Julia pressed her mouth into a polite line. I felt my neck go hot. "What are we allocating?" Dad raised one finger. 1. Cecile works from home. She doesn't need a whole house to herself. 2, Mom chimed. A family with children has real space needs. Bedrooms, a yard, a place to breathe. She smiled at Julia's daughter, who was making a crown out of napkins. 3, Dad said. Our basement will be finished next month. Cozy, appropriate for a single person who requires only Wi-Fi and a desk. He looked genuinely proud of the word appropriate. 4, Mom continued, bright with relief now that they'd reached the point. We propose, temporarily, of course, that Julia and Patrick and the kids move into your house. You'll move into our basement. You'll still have full access to the upstairs bathroom during work hours. I laughed, loud, a little feral. That's a joke. Silence gathered like rain. Mom tilted her head. Why would we joke about family? Patrick stared at his plate. Julia's fork hovered midair like a hesitant conductor. We wouldn't presume, Julia said. It's just Timmy's sharing with both little ones. The baby still wakes at night. A yard would help. It would help. Your family, I said, my voice filing itself into crispness. My house is mine. I bought it with my job, which is real, even if I do it from my office with a door instead of a cubicle with noise. Dad grinned the way people grin before they say something that will make your therapist rich. But Cecile, you earned that money sitting at home. There it was. The fluorescent bulb popped. I checked my phone under the table. A text from Ryan, my boyfriend, pulsed on the screen. How's it going? Need an extraction? I pictured his raised eyebrow, the one he uses when he knows I'm minimizing. I thought of the tiny tremor in my chest when his ex, Elise, comments on our friend's posts with sugary little barbs no one calls out. Not relevant. Not tonight. Focus. You're proposing, I said carefully, that a house I pay for, mortgage, taxes, insurance, become a community resource because I only need Wi-Fi. Mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. It's family, not community. Family means sharing, especially when one person has more than they need. More than I need, I repeated, hearing my voice from a distance. The extra rooms are my work and my music. My life fits in them because I built it to. Dad lifted the clipboard. We've prepared a transition plan. We even put in the effort to save you hassle. Movers, storage, paint samples. Look. He flipped to a page with a rough sketch. Cecile's desk area was scribbled on a tiny rectangle. Cecile's sleeping zone sat under stairs. Patrick inhaled like he was about to apologize. Julia beat him to it with a practiced, gentle tone. We don't want to take anything from you. It's just, Mom and Dad think it's best, for everyone. There's a kind of fury that doesn't feel like heat. It feels like bright, clean cold. It came over me then, rinsing everything until the only thing I could see clearly was the outline of my own front door. No, I said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. You are not moving into my house. I am not living in a basement. I am not a resource to be redistributed. Mom blinked, as if I'd spoken a language that hadn't been invented yet. We hear you, honey, she said, the way a sales rep nods while circling your credit card number. So, what day this week works for you to start moving your things? I set my fork down. Let me try again. No, not this week, not next month, not ever. Dad's kindly mask slid. Watch your tone with your mother. My tone is the sound of a boundary, I said. You asked me to give up my home because you don't respect how I earn it. There's your tone. Across from me, Julia's daughter folded another napkin into a paper crown and placed it on my mother's head. It sat there crookedly, ridiculous and perfect. For a blink, I saw how this would look on Facebook. Blessed to have a daughter who understands family values. The likes rolling in. Hearts. Prayer hands. My name not even in the caption, just implied. I stood. My chair made a sound like a line being drawn. Dinner was lovely, I said. But this conversation is over. Do not go to my house. Do not send anyone. Do not make plans that involve my property. Cecile, Mom said, her voice finally cracking. Your selfishness is self-protection, I said, and overdue. As I reached the door, Dad called after me. The basement will be ready next month. You'll see how reasonable this is. I paused at the threshold, hand on the frame, and let the cold clarity do the speaking. If anyone shows up at my house uninvited, I will call the police. The paper crown slid off my mother's hair and hit the table with the quietest sound I've ever heard, like a promise being broken in miniature. Outside, my phone buzzed again. You okay? Ryan wrote. Say the word. I'll drive over. I typed, I'm okay, but I think a storm's coming. He sent back a lightning emoji I could almost hear. I drove home through streets I paid taxes for, turned into a driveway with a motion light I installed myself, and stood in front of a door that was, for now, still only opened by my key. As the lock clicked, a draft pressed against my back like a warning. On my kitchen island, my laptop slept, its little white LED breathing in and out, a metronome steady enough to drown out the sound of a fluorescent tube somewhere finally giving way. I thought the dinner would be a one-off moment of parental madness, a conversation to laugh about someday. I was wrong. By the following Thursday, Mom was texting me photos of paint chips. We're thinking a soft dove gray for the basement walls, honey. Calming for focus. She added a smiling emoji. I didn't reply. Friday morning, another text came. Do you prefer carpet or laminate flooring? We'll match it to your desk. Something in my stomach twisted. They weren't joking. That night, I decided to call them, to be calm, adult, logical. I rehearsed the words in my head while stirring pasta. I love you, but this isn't happening. I called. Mom answered on the second ring, her voice all syrup. Sweetheart, we're so glad you called. We were just looking at rugs for your sleeping area. Stop, I said softly. Please stop. I'm not moving. My house is not a family resource. We've talked about this. Silence. Then the brittle tone that meant she was about to play martyr. Oh, Cecile, you're making this so difficult. Dad's voice joined in from somewhere near the phone. We're doing what's best for the family. You'll understand soon. They hung up before I could say more. I went to bed uneasy. Tuesday afternoon, a week later, I was leading a deployment review when my phone lit up with a string of motion alerts from my doorbell camera. At first, I ignored them. When the notifications kept piling, I muted my mic and opened the app. There, on the screen, was a moving truck in my driveway. In the live feed, I saw my mother in a floral blouse, my father with that clipboard, Julia and Patrick, and two men in gray t-shirts unloading furniture. I unmuted long enough to say, Team, I need to step out. Family emergency. Then I ran. By the time I reached the front door, Dad was directing the men toward my porch. Bedroom sets first, he said. Let's get the kids' things in place before dark. I flung open the door. What the hell is this? Mom beamed as though we were at a surprise party. We're here to help with your transition, sweetheart. Julia's been so stressed. The movers had an opening today. Isn't that lucky? Transition? I could barely breathe. You mean invasion? Dad gave an exaggerated sigh. Let's not be dramatic. I stepped outside, blocking the entry. No one is bringing anything into my house. You all need to leave. Now. Patrick raised both hands, embarrassed. Cecile, look, I didn't ask for this. Julia cut in, voice syrupy and strained. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Think of the children. My house isn't the solution for your children, I said. Mom tried to edge past me, murmuring, We already discussed this, honey. She actually put her hand on my arm to push through the doorway. I caught her wrist, firm but calm. We discussed nothing. I said no. Dad frowned and pulled out his phone. You're being unreasonable. Maybe you forgot the family chat? He showed me the screen. A group text called Cecile's Transition Support. I wasn't in it. Messages scrolled by. Mom discussing color palettes for the children's rooms. Julia asking if my garage could fit 2 cars. Patrick wondering if Cecile's car could stay on the street. My father even mentioned how much the family would save on Julia's rent to put toward family vacations. They'd planned all of it, behind my back. I felt my pulse in my ears. Leave, all of you, or I call the police. Mom's face crumpled into a practiced sob. I can't believe you'd threaten your own family like this. You're trying to take my house, I said. What exactly do you expect me to do? Hand you the deed with a thank you note? We raised you, she hissed. We fed you. We did what parents are supposed to do. That doesn't entitle you to my home. Dad's voice deepened. Watch your tone, young lady. Watch your boundaries, Dad. Julia's son tugged at her sleeve, whispering, Mommy, are we still moving here? I saw Julia flinch, then glare at me like it was my fault. Patrick looked at the ground. Come on, he muttered. Let's just go. They started retreating, muttering about my selfishness. My mom stopped halfway down the steps. That basement will be ready whether you appreciate it or not, she said, eyes wet and furious. When you come to your senses, it'll be waiting. The truck left. I went back inside, locked every door, then changed every lock. That night, my phone buzzed nonstop. The family had created another group chat. Extended relatives this time. Aunt Rose. So proud of Cecile for helping Julia's family. Uncle Greg. About time she used that big house for good. Cousin Leanne. You'll love the basement once it's finished. It was like watching strangers narrate my life in the wrong tense. I typed a single message. I am not moving. I am not giving up my home. Anyone who shows up here uninvited will be trespassed. Then I left the group. Within minutes, Mom texted separately. Your selfishness is tearing this family apart. I hope your fancy computer job is worth losing us. I stared at the message until my eyes blurred, then replied, I'm not losing my family. I'm protecting myself from people who don't respect me, my work, or my boundaries. She shot back instantly. Property rights? That's what family means to you? Legal terms? I didn't answer. Instead, I called my friend Alan, the lawyer who'd helped me close on the house. When I told him everything, he was silent for a long time. Then he said, Document everything, Cecile. Keep records. They have no legal ground, but I've seen people try insane things when they feel entitled. I followed his advice, screenshotted texts, saved videos, printed photos of the moving truck. By midnight, my living room looked like a crime board for a soap opera I didn't audition for. The next morning, a notification from Facebook jolted me awake. Mom had posted a status. Family means sacrifice. Some of us understand that, some don't. Prayers appreciated. Hundreds of likes. Aunts and cousins cheering her courage. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. The comments burned through me like acid. Ryan called. Hey, he said gently. Your mom's post is blowing up. You okay? I'm fine, I lied. He paused. You don't sound fine. I looked around my quiet, locked house. My sanctuary turned siege. I just need to work. Focus. Then work, he said. But promise me you'll start a paper trail. This isn't normal, Cecile. I laughed under my breath. You think I don't know that? When we hung up, I opened my laptop. My reflection stared back from the dark screen, eyes ringed with exhaustion, mouth tight with disbelief. Then the fan whirred to life, and my world shrank again to the one thing I could control. Lines of code, steady and logical. A universe that obeyed rules. But behind the keystrokes, one thought pulsed, sharp and certain. If they could show up once, they could show up again. And next time, they wouldn't bring just a moving truck. For 2 blessed weeks, there was silence. No calls, No unannounced visits, no pastel texts about family unity. I almost believed it was over. Then the war went public. It started small. Mom posting vague quotes about ungrateful children forgetting who raised them. Then, a full paragraph about the selfishness of single homeowners in a housing crisis. She tagged me in it. Tagged me. Every notification was like a knock on the door. I untagged myself. Within hours, she tagged me again. Her caption, "Some people have a house, but no heart." I sat at my desk staring at the screen, my cursor blinking beside 1,000 things I wanted to say. I typed, deleted, retyped. Then I closed the app. Let her scream into her echo chamber. I had work to do. But silence wasn't protection anymore. The next morning, Ryan called. "You might want to see something," he said. I clicked the link he sent, Julia's Instagram, a new account, @apartmentlife, with 3 kids. Her first post showed her children squeezed together on a pull-out bed, smiling weakly under a caption. "Making the best of small spaces while we pray for new beginnings. Someday we'll have a yard to call our own." I scrolled, my pulse tightening. Photo after photo of their cramped apartment, toys stacked against walls, tiny kitchen tables. And the comments, "You're such a strong mom, praying for the right doors to open. Family always provides when you have faith." Mom commented under nearly every post, "God provides through those with open hearts." I shut my phone off. The sound of my heartbeat filled the room. 2 days later, I came home from a grocery run and froze in my driveway. There was a sign on my front lawn, a 4-foot banner staked into the ground, printed with glossy photos of Julia's kids and the words, "Future home of the Julia family, thanks to sister's generosity." My neighbors were outside, whispering, pretending not to watch. Someone was taking pictures. My vision tunneled. I tore the sign out of the dirt, threw it in the trunk, and went straight inside. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with notifications. Julia's Instagram story. A photo of the same banner, captioned, "Claiming it in faith, #blessed, #family. First #God's plan." Comments flooded in. "So happy for you. Your sister's an angel. Finally, some good news." I typed a comment, just one line. "This is harassment. Please stop." It disappeared within minutes. Deleted. But not before Julia screenshotted it and shared it to her story with crying emojis and, "Why would she be so cruel?" I sat down on my stairs, shaking so badly I dropped my phone. When Ryan came over that night, he didn't say, "I told you so." He just stood there quietly, scanning the new security cameras I'd installed, nodding. "Good," he said. "Get motion alerts set to high and keep everything backed up." The next afternoon, I saw Dad on my doorbell feed, walking around my house with a clipboard, measuring. I called him. "What are you doing?" He sounded cheerful. "Just helping Patrick plan for the renovation." "Renovation of my house?" "Future renovation," he said, as if that made it better. "Dad, you are trespassing. Leave." He sighed, the kind of sigh designed to make me feel like a disappointment. "Your grandfather would be ashamed, Cecile. He built his house for his family. You buy one with computer money and won't even share." "Grandpa also taught me about ownership," I said, "and boundaries." He went quiet, then muttered, "The basement's painted a beautiful gray. You'll love it." He left. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like footsteps. 3 days later, I woke up to a metallic clinking on my front door. When I opened it, I froze. A lockbox, the kind realtors use, hung from my doorknob. I called Mom immediately. "Oh, good. You saw it," she said brightly. "We thought it'd be easier for your transition. Julia and Patrick can start moving their things in slowly so you're not overwhelmed." "You put a lockbox on my door?" "Don't be dramatic," she said. "The code's your birthday. We're not strangers." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I went to the garage, grabbed bolt cutters, and removed the box. Then I called a locksmith. By sunset, I had new deadbolts and a security system that sent alerts directly to my phone. When the locksmith left, I stood at the door, watching the light from the porch spill onto the new lock. I realized I didn't feel safe anymore. Not from strangers, from my own blood. 2 days later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Legal letterhead. For a second, I thought, absurdly, that they were trying to sue me for the house. It was worse. A formal rental agreement. Apparently, my parents were designating their basement as a rental unit to maintain family harmony. The lease listed me as the tenant. Rent, $400 per month, generously below market value. Kitchen access, with 24-hour notice. Bathroom hours 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays. Quiet hours during their TV time. No overnight guests without landlord approval. First right of refusal if I decided to abandon my housing stubbornness. They had actually typed that. I called Alan, my lawyer friend, again. He laughed so hard he had to put me on hold. When he came back, he said, "Frame that. Hang it in your office. Proof that family delusion can be legally formatted." I almost laughed too. Almost. But that night, sitting at my desk, I saw my reflection in the window. My shoulders were slumped. My eyes looked hollow. This wasn't funny anymore. The next morning, my manager pulled me into a one-on-one video call. "Cecile," she said carefully, "you've been distracted lately. Are you okay?" I hesitated, then told her everything. The moving truck, the posts, the lockbox. Her expression went from disbelief to horror. "Cecile," she said softly, "this isn't family conflict. It's abuse." The word landed like a slap. Abuse. I'd never used that word before, but hearing it, it fit, like a puzzle piece I didn't want to own. She told me to take time off. "We'll support you however we can," she said. "You deserve peace." When the call ended, I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the faint reflection of the backyard on my screen. I could see my rose bushes swaying in the wind, the same roses Mom helped me plant last spring. She'd smiled then, saying, "Roots matter, Cecile. You'll understand when you have your own family." Now, those words felt like a curse disguised as advice. I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, "No more roots where people keep trying to dig you up." The house was quiet, but under the quiet, I could hear something coming, the sound of desperation sharpening its claws. For almost 3 weeks, nothing happened. No Facebook posts, no drive-bys, no calls from blocked numbers. The silence felt strange, like a warning instead of peace. I started sleeping again. A little. Ryan said maybe they'd burned themselves out. He came over more often, cooking dinner, trying to make me laugh. We'd watch bad reality shows until midnight, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Then, one Friday morning, a certified letter arrived. The return address, my parents. I tore it open on the porch, still holding my coffee. The first line made my hands shake so hard the cup slipped and shattered. Formal family intervention notice. They'd had it notarized. The letter included 1, a psychiatric evaluation referral for my antisocial behavior. 2, a family counseling schedule with a therapist who specializes in gaming addiction because I spend unhealthy amounts of time on computers. 3, 4 glossy photos of their finished basement, complete with a door sign reading, "Cecil's Suite." 4, and worst of all, a pre-filled power of attorney form, listing my parents as joint decision makers due to Cecile's recent irrational conduct. I laughed, a brittle, hollow sound. It echoed across the porch. When Ryan read it that night, he went still. "This isn't just manipulation," he said quietly. "They're trying to build a legal narrative that you're unstable." He was right. It wasn't just emotional warfare anymore. It was paperwork warfare. Alan, my lawyer friend, stopped laughing this time. "They're towing into harassment and defamation territory," he said. "I'll connect you with a real estate attorney. Send them everything." Within a week, that attorney drafted a cease and desist letter so sharp it could cut glass. It warned that any attempt to enter my property, claim rights to my home, or question my mental capacity would trigger legal action. I printed 2 copies, one for my files, one taped to my front door. For days, nothing. Then came Tuesday at 3:11 a.m. My phone buzzed with an alert from the security system. Movement detected in backyard. Half awake, I opened the camera app. At first, the night vision feed was grainy, shifting shapes. Then the image resolved and my stomach dropped. Julia and Patrick. Patrick was crouched by my back door, fiddling with the lock. Julia stood lookout, whispering urgently, glancing toward the street. I hit record. "Ryan," I whispered, shaking him awake. "They're here." He sat up instantly. "Call 911. By the time the police arrived, Patrick had gotten the door half open. The officers caught them before they could enter. The footage was crystal clear. Faces, hands, tools, everything. Watching from the window, I felt my pulse detach from my body. There was no anger left, just cold clarity. Julia's voice carried across the yard as they cuffed her. "It's a family matter. Mom and Dad said it was okay." I stayed inside, arms wrapped around myself, listening to the words I'd never thought I'd hear in real life. "You're under arrest for attempted breaking and entering." The officers took statements, copied the footage, and promised to file a report. 2 hours later, my parents called, from a neighbor's phone, since I'd blocked them. Mom was hysterical. How could you do this to your own sister? You've ruined her life. The kids are traumatized. The kids weren't even there, I said flatly. Dad's voice broke through. You could have handled this privately. You brought police into family business. You broke into my house, I said. That's not family business. That's a crime. Mom sobbed louder. We were just trying to help you. You're isolating yourself. Everyone sees how unstable you've become. Goodbye, I said and hung up. Then I blocked the neighbor's number too. The next morning, I sent the police report and video files to my attorney. He called within minutes. You did everything right, he said. From now on, no contact. Every message, every attempt, document it. If they try again, we escalate. I stared at the wall behind my desk where the soft morning light hit the framed lease letter. I'd hung it up after Alan's joke, but now it looked like evidence in a trial that never seemed to end. Ryan wrapped his arms around me. Move, he whispered into my hair. Please, before they hurt you. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something inside me, pride, maybe, or fear, kept me rooted. This is my home, I said. If I run, they win. He didn't argue. He just held me tighter. Over the next week, I blocked every family number, every social media account, every email domain that looked like them. The silence that followed was heavy but clean, the kind that feels like detox. I slept through the night for the first time in months. Work stabilized. My boss congratulated me on surviving the product launch. She even hinted at a promotion. For a brief, fleeting moment, life felt normal, but trauma has an aftertaste. Some nights, I'd still jolt awake at 3:10 a.m., half expecting to see shapes outside the window. I'd grab my phone, scroll through camera feeds until dawn, and tell myself it was just paranoia. Still, I knew the truth. People like my parents don't stop. They regroup. And somewhere, probably under that basement's new gray paint, they were planning their next family solution. 2 months later, I found out what it was. A certified letter again, but this one from Patricia Reed Esquani, the divorce attorney brother of my sister's husband. Subject line, proposal for mediation, family housing resolution. They wanted to mediate the shared housing dispute. I stared at the letter until the words blurred. Shared. Dispute. As if my house was a community center and I'd forgotten my assigned shift. I didn't reply. Instead, I started looking at relocation packages my company had offered months ago. Denver, Austin, Portland. When I scrolled past the photo of snow-capped mountains and a caption that read, Colorado HQ expanding, something in my chest loosened. For the first time in a long time, the word away didn't sound like defeat. It sounded like freedom. And maybe, just maybe, survival. The morning I emailed my manager to accept the relocation offer to Colorado, I didn't tell anyone, not even Ryan, not yet. I just sat at my kitchen table, staring at the blinking cursor over the words, yes, I'd like to proceed. When I finally hit send, something inside me unclenched so hard I started crying. Quiet, breathless tears of relief. I wasn't running away. I was walking toward peace. That same week, I contacted a real estate agent. We listed my house. It sold in 4 days, above asking price. The buyers were a young couple. She taught music, he worked in cybersecurity. They loved the backyard roses and promised to take care of them. I smiled, thinking, good. The house deserves people who won't try to steal it. But peace is never that simple when your family treats boundaries like open invitations. The moment Mom found out, and of course she did, because small towns have big mouths, the extinction burst began. First, she showed up with a priest, literally. My doorbell camera caught her and Father Dennis from her church on my porch, sprinkling holy water and murmuring blessings. When I opened the door, she smiled sweetly. It's time to bless the family transition, she said. We're cleansing the space for Julia's move-in. I shut the door without a word. 5 minutes later, I watched her on camera, pressing her palm flat to my front door and whispering, You'll come to your senses soon, Cecile? The next week, Dad tried something new. A lien. Yes, a fraudulent lien. Filed with the county clerk, claiming I owed them $38,000 for parental expenses and emotional damages. My attorney nearly spit out his coffee when he read it. Congratulations, he said dryly. You've hit the trifecta, emotional manipulation, public smear, and now financial fraud. He sent another cease and desist, this one even sharper than the first. But Mom didn't stop. She moved to GoFundMe. A new campaign appeared online. Help displaced children get their family home back. The story read, Our daughter Cecile sadly abandoned her family and refuses to let her sister's children have a safe home. We're heartbroken. Please help us rebuild what selfishness destroyed. The photo, my house, my porch, my roses. Within hours, it had $600 in donations, mostly from church acquaintances and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. I sent the link to my attorney. He had it taken down within 48 hours, citing defamation. But not before Mom left one last update on the fundraiser page. Legal bullying can't erase love. We forgive her anyway. Forgive me for owning my home. The day before closing, I stopped by the property to pack a few last boxes. The walls felt bare, echoing with old laughter and new scars. I walked through each room slowly. The office where I'd built my career, the corner where I'd cried after the first ambush, the kitchen where I'd danced alone after landing my promotion. It felt like saying goodbye to an old version of myself, the one who still believed family couldn't turn into a storm. I left one thing behind, the framed lease agreement they'd sent me. I taped it to the wall in the basement before locking up, a quiet memorial to absurdity. Then I drove to Ryan's apartment. He looked up from the couch as I walked in with my duffel bag. "So," he said softly, "it's official?" "Yeah." "When do you fly?" "Tomorrow." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'll miss you, Cecile." "I'll miss you too." We both knew we couldn't do long distance, not while my life was still bleeding from family chaos. He hugged me anyway, and that night we fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in silence instead of promises. The next morning, while I was boarding my flight, my phone buzzed. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Haley. "Cecile, there's a U-Haul in your driveway again, and your parents are here, with a locksmith." My blood ran cold. I opened my security app mid-boarding. Sure enough, there they were. Dad shouting instructions. Mom waving a set of envelopes at the locksmith. When the locksmith hesitated, Dad held up a piece of mail. "See? We receive mail here. That makes us tenants." I realized in horror what they'd done. They'd been sending letters to themselves at my address for weeks to create a fake paper trail of residency. I motioned to the flight attendant. "I need a second," I said, stepping aside as I called 911 from another state. The dispatcher transferred me to local police. I gave them the address and told them to access the live feed. 10 minutes later, through my phone screen, I watched as squad cars rolled into the driveway. My mother's face when she realized she was being arrested, that mixture of shock, indignation, and disbelief is burned into my memory forever. Dad tried to argue tenant rights. The officer pointed at the deed name on record, Cecile Mata. Handcuffs, headlights, silence. The plane door closed as I watched them being driven away. I turned my phone off and finally exhaled. 3 weeks later, the house sale closed. Funds transferred. The roses, the locks, the ghosts, all gone. I was officially free. I rented a small furnished condo in Denver for the first month. Waking up there was like learning to breathe new air. My new office had a window facing the Rockies. When the sun hit those mountains, the light turned everything gold, like forgiveness without the apology. Ryan sent one message the day after I moved. "I'm proud of you." I didn't reply right away. I just looked out the window and whispered, "So am I." 2 weeks later, a mutual friend texted me a photo from social media. Julia and Patrick, divorcing. The caption read, "Sometimes family pressure breaks more than hearts." My parents were drowning in legal fees. Their basement, my suite, sat empty. A monument to control turned to debt. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was tired. Tired and finally alone in a way that felt like safety. That night, as I unpacked boxes, I found the framed lease copy again. I hung it above my new desk, not as bitterness, but as a reminder. You can love your family and still protect yourself from them. And sometimes walking away isn't betrayal, it's survival. I shut down my computer, turned off the lights, and for the first time in almost a year, I slept without checking the cameras. The storm was finally behind me, but in the quiet of that Colorado night, I promised myself, never again will I let anyone mistake my boundaries for selfishness. Because the truth was simple, peace wasn't something they could give me. It was something I'd finally taken back. It's strange. The first morning you wake up knowing no one in your family knows where you live. No one can drive by. No one can guilt call you into a dinner ambush. No one can put your name on a sign. Just mountain light through the curtains and the sound of your own breath. My new life in Colorado felt foreign at first. The air was thinner, cleaner, like everything heavy had been left back in Ohio. I rented a little townhouse near the foothills. The first night, I fell asleep to the sound of wind instead of tension. I planted new roses out front, crimson ones this time, and as the petals unfurled, I thought, these roots belong only to me. My work thrived. I crushed the next product launch, earned a promotion to principal engineer, and my new manager said something that stuck with me. The way you handle chaos, you don't break, you adapt. She didn't know that chaos had been my family's native language. Julia and Patrick separated 2 months after my move. Apparently, the pressure of the house ordeal cracked open things they'd both ignored for years. His debt, her resentment, Mom's endless interference. Mom blamed me in every group text I wasn't in, calling me the catalyst of destruction. Dad tried to file another claim for family emotional restitution. It was dismissed before I could even finish laughing. And then, nothing. Just silence. No calls, no letters, not even through third parties. The quiet stretched long enough that I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. Ryan came to visit in the spring. He stood in my new kitchen, looking out the window at the snow peaks. "So," he said, smiling softly, "you really did it." "I did," I said. "Do you regret it?" I thought about that for a long time. The flight, the sale, the tears, the arrest reports, the endless proof that blood isn't always loyalty. Then I shook my head. No, not one thing. He stayed a week. We hiked, laughed, cooked. For the first time in months, I felt something tender that wasn't immediately followed by dread. When he left, I didn't cry. It wasn't an ending. It was clarity. He'd helped me survive the storm, but the peace was mine to build, alone. One evening, while organizing files, I found a message request in an old email folder. It was from Elise, Ryan's ex. Subject line, "They're posting about you again." She'd attached screenshots. Mom had joined a local community Facebook group under a new name, posting about daughters who abandon their elders. Underneath, a comment from Aunt Denise. "She'll come back when life humbles her." I almost replied, almost. Instead, I deleted the email and blocked the sender. Because the truth is, they were right. Life had humbled me, just not in the way they meant. It humbled me into realizing that peace isn't something you negotiate for, it's something you choose. My therapist, a calm, sharp woman named Lydia, once asked, "When did you first learn that saying no was dangerous?" I didn't even have to think. "At dinner," I said. "Always at dinner." She nodded. "Then maybe it's time to make a new kind of table." So I did. I invited 3 coworkers, a neighbor, and one woman I met at a local bookstore over for dinner. We cooked pasta, drank cheap wine, laughed too loudly. No one asked for favors. No one demanded sacrifices. No one called me selfish for having a life that fit me. That night, as we cleared the dishes, I realized something simple but monumental. I wasn't lonely. I was free. Months later, I received one final envelope forwarded from my old P.O. box. Inside was a photo of my parents' basement. Empty. A caption scrawled in Mom's handwriting. "We painted over your name. Hope you're happy." I smiled, folded it, dropped it in the trash. Because yes, I was happy. Sometimes I still think about the night I watched them being arrested from 1,000 miles away. The flashing lights, the cold satisfaction, the guilt that followed. But mostly, I remember the moment after. The silence that came over me, like the air after thunder. That's what peace sounds like. Not applause, not closure, just quiet. These days I wake up early. I make coffee. I open my laptop by the window where the mountains rise like forgiveness itself. My team calls start at 9. I build systems, write code, design things that make sense, unlike people. And sometimes, when I close my laptop at night, I whisper to the empty room, "Your job is real, your home is yours, your life is valid." Because I need to hear it. And because somewhere, someone else does too. If you're listening, if your family doesn't respect your boundaries, if they call your independence selfish, hear me. You are not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're reclaiming yourself. And sometimes the price of peace is distance. The roses in my front yard are blooming again. I water them every Sunday morning. The same day my parents used to hold family dinners. It feels poetic somehow. Because family used to mean a table that made me small. Now, it's a garden that grows because I finally stopped letting anyone else hold the hose. I don't know if forgiveness will ever come, but peace already has. And it's enough.